the number of algoraves and the diversity of locations is increasing every year. So it started in the UK, and pretty quickly there became a significant scene in Mexico City, and then after that, then it started to expand in other countries in Europe and in Asia. And there have been a few in Australia now and in South America. I think I haven't heard of an algorave yet in Africa, so that's something to target. But yeah, so the number of algoraves is growing. And then of course it means the number of people doing algorithmic music is growing, and the profile of algorave is increasing. So this year there was a documentary on RA, a resident advisor, about algorave, and so that was I think a big sign of how far algorave has come. And there have been events this year at famous cool venues in London and Berlin and here in Tokyo. So I think before it was often held in DIY spaces or small art galleries, and now it has entered the proper club world. And so that's encouraging. And I hope then maybe one of the difficult points of algorave is that because it's possible to make this very new music, it's also maybe hard for some people to listen to. But I think that the way culture works is people are exposed to something, and if they have an surprising experience, even if they can't quite understand the first time, then they leave and they think about it. Their thinking is changed and their taste is changed. And so I think the fact that we have made it to resident advisor or these mainstream clubs means that the general landscape of electronic music is also changing some as a result of algorave. Well, so Alex McLean, of course, he's a very important algoraver, right? Because he originated the term, and he has also made a very important tool for producing algorithmic music called tidal cycles. This is one of the most popular tools for performing at algoraves. And so his performance is very interesting because as the designer, the inventor of this tool, naturally he can use it better than almost anyone. And so his performances are really fabulous. So then if we follow this thread, so tidal cycles is one of the most widely used live coding tools. And in America, there is a guy called Kingdom, Mike Hodnick, and he is a really advanced user of tidal cycles. He uses it in a different way from Alex, so he has been using it long enough and developed his own style, which visually looks quite different from Alex's style and also sounds very different, and the quality of his music is really very high, I think. So he's another interesting person to check. His artist name is Kingdom, Kindohm. If we just take this tool approach, one of the other very popular tools for live coding is Super Collider. And a woman named Shelley Knotts has been using Super Collider for a very long time. And because she has been using it for so long, her skill level is very, very high. And so she produces very interesting music using Super Collider. Super Collider is a big part of why the scene in Mexico City grew so rapidly. But now I guess there are people using both Super Collider and tidal cycles in Mexico City. And one of the outstanding users in Mexico City is an artist, I'll get her name wrong. It's acronym CNDSD. Her name is Malitzin. So she's a great user of tidal cycles in Mexico City. Super Collider was developed by a Texan called James McCartney, and I think it was originally developed in maybe the very first version was the late 90s. So it's a much more mature tool than tidal cycles, but it's more complex for users to begin with. So that's one of the other nice points, I guess, about tidal cycles, is that beginners can start with it within a day and be producing musical results, whereas Super Collider is more difficult to do so. I think one of the very interesting points about about many algorave performers in Japan is that they are extending the tools with their own software, which is maybe more, I feel maybe it's more common in Japan than in other parts of the world. So for example, Moxus has used tidal cycles with Super Collider together and developed special tools that only he uses for his performance and that give him a very unique sound. There's another performer who will perform here tomorrow night called Naoki Nomoto, and he has developed software, some code that allows him to control modular synthesizer using tidal cycles. And he shared some of his code with me, and I used that in tonight's performance. And he also makes very interesting music as a result of this. There's another group called AI Step that have used tidal cycles but automated it so that much of the code is changing automatically according to another program that they have written, which also then produces yet again a very unique style of music. So I think that there are a lot of advanced programmers in Japan who are doing this that then get very unique results as a result. And also there's Tadokuro Sensei, and so he is doing the same using tidal cycles and then adding his own software to that, so that it becomes very visual, and it becomes possible to understand visually, so not just through code, but to understand visually what is happening in the music. And he's also, I think, important because he has been very active in teaching these tools. So there's another very major tool that I've left out called Sonic Pi. And so Tadoko Sensei has been teaching Sonic Pi and tidal cycles to students at many universities in Japan or in workshops. And so I think he's playing a very important role. And he also produces very high quality music. All you need is a computer. And just a computer connected to the internet, so you could go through the tutorial for Sonic Pi or tidal cycles, and that would get you started. Attending a workshop is probably an easier way. One of the hardest parts about the software, because the software is new, the install process can be a little challenging for some people for various technical reasons. And so if you go to a workshop, there will be some kind of facilitator there who can help you to get the software installed and understand the basics of how to use it. So that's probably the best way to get started. But there's another important point, I guess. So algorave community is very focused on being open, and that extends to the software. So almost all of the software is open source software, and that's important for two reasons. One is that we can look at the source code, we can see all of the source code and change it if we want, which is different from software like Windows or Ableton Live, which is closed software. So even if we wanted to see inside, we can't. The companies don't allow us to see how the software is built. So with the software that's used in the algorave community, it's open source, we can look inside and change it if we want. But then another very practical benefit of this is that the software is all free. So that makes it very easy to get started doing algorave, right? Because you can just download the software for free. You don't need to pay. And this was a big part of why the scene in Mexico City developed so quickly, because they felt, I was told by many people in Mexico City, they often felt that it was difficult to participate in the international community in many ways, because after all, it takes money, and not everybody in Mexico had money. But when it comes to open source software, they could get the software for free. And so they said, hey, here's something, we're not restrained by money, we can advance purely based on our own skill and hard work. And so then a lot of people, I think, were excited about that, and that's why there's a very healthy, part of why there's a very healthy scene in Mexico now. I have to think about a lot of things. So one of the most fundamental things is I have to avoid writing a bug or doing something that causes an error that would then cause the system to crash and all of the music would stop. And actually this is a kind of common occurrence in algoraves. So I think nearly every algorave there's at least one performer who manages to do something that causes the computer to crash, or at least the program to crash, and the music stops. But everyone is sort of familiar with this, and they all applaud and cheer for the performer, and the performer restarts their software and begins again. So this is the first thing I guess I have to think about and be careful about. I'm also thinking about, I'm interested in music that changes very quickly. And so I'm trying to think about the difference between programmer time and audience time. And I think if this scene has any challenges, problems that it has to deal with, one of the difficult areas is the difference in how a programmer feels time and how an audience member feels time. So when a programmer is dealing with some difficult code, they may be very focused on one or two lines, and they can think about it very deeply, and sometimes they can think about it for a very long time. But while they're thinking about this code, the music is continuing and the audience is listening, right? And I think there are cases when there's a gap between the feeling of the interest of the programmer in the code and the interest, or the falling interest of the audience in the music because the music hasn't changed. And so personally, it's one of the points that I'm always trying to think about, how to keep the music changing rapidly. And then I guess because it's an algorave, I'm usually looking for some kind of groove. I want the music to somehow be danceable. And so this is connected with that cultural, developing the culture from before, or changing people's tastes. So algorithms can create these new rhythms that we've never heard before. And that means that people might have difficulty dancing to them. So I'm searching, I'm always looking for something that creates some kind of groove. And I hope that even if it's new, someone in the audience can try to find a way to dance to it. So I'm always searching for this and trying to find a balance between something that's very fresh and new, but somehow still can make people respond with their bodies. So I have my own software that I use for live coding. When I started, I was watching Alex develop his software, and I had made my algorithmic music system based on Super Collider, but then I had switched, and I wanted to try a new system with some new ideas, and I was watching Alex develop his, and I asked him at that time, before Tidal Cycles even had a name, "Hey, this looks very interesting, I want to use it." And he said, "Oh, thanks, but it's not ready yet." And so at that time I started to develop my own software, and I have been developing it continuously over the years. Now, so my software is also open source software, but I haven't made a public version available in a long time. And so right now I'm looking for an institution to help me to get some time. I'm looking for, I want to be able to work on it full time so that I can develop a new version of the software and then make it publicly available and share it to other people so that more people could use it for live coding along with Tidal Cycles or Super Collider. So one of the things that I'm targeting very seriously right now is finding an institution that can support my research and development of my own software, which is called Conductive. It is public, but it's a very old version, and it would be almost impossible for someone to use it because there are no instructions for how to use it. The code is available, but if they download it, they might say, how do I use this? There's no instructions, there's no tutorials, and I need time. Actually, after all, it takes a lot of time to develop, a manual for your software, and so I hope some institution will, in the next year, will help me to do so. Yeah, I have two messages. So for the people that for the people that want to perform in an algorithm themselves, they just have to start to practice. And they, like anything, it takes time, and you're learning a new skill. Programming languages are languages, and so like a language, it takes effort, it takes regular practice. And so I encourage anybody who wants to do that to download and install the tools and then try to make a daily practice of it. And eventually they will develop the skill to be able to perform. And then to show their work regularly. It's often difficult to find time to practice. So I think that one way to force yourself to practice is before you are ready to sign up for an event and begin to perform. So I tell people often, because I'm working, I don't have time to practice. So performances become my practice. And if I make mistakes in a performance, it's okay. You know, everybody is making mistakes in performances. Like I said earlier, it's often the case that one or two performers crashes in the middle of the performance. And audiences are aware of this and supportive. So I think rather than being shy about it, it's better just to join an event and perform and make mistakes and learn from them and develop the culture together this way. So that's one of the messages. The other important message that I'm telling everyone is this message about openness. Algorithms are taking an increasingly important place in our lives. So more and more our lives are mediated by algorithms, so that we interact with other people through algorithms, or we conduct business through algorithms. And it means that algorithms' importance is increasing day by day. But if we don't have the skills to evaluate these algorithms, then we will lose a kind of control. And if those algorithms are not made open for us to look inside, then we have also lost control. And that's dangerous for a lot of reasons. For business reasons, you may lose money. As a citizen, you may lose freedom, or we may lose our culture. So it's important for people to demand from corporations and from the government that the algorithms that are being used are made open for us to see. And then we have to develop the skills to be able to reason about these algorithms, to be able to understand them. Otherwise, I think our society is going in a dangerous direction. So it's my hope that through algorave, we are encouraging a kind of resistance to this other negative direction that society could go. And so I would encourage people to demand open algorithms from society and to develop the skills to be able to understand them.